Hey everybody, we are live. I am David. This is High Shelf Gaming, and today's stream, you're all here. You know what's up. We got a lot of people in chat. We got a lot of viewers today. How to run Cyberpunk campaigns. This is all part of GaryCon, which is going on right now this weekend. They're running a bunch of events. You can play games, you can run games, you can shop, and all that kind of stuff. It's a virtual convention this year because, of course, it is, right? GaryCon, for those who don't know, is in memory of Gary Gygax, the guy who founded TSR, the company that made D&D and started this whole hobby that we are all now deeply obsessed over, and some of us live off this hobby, which is phenomenal. And the other thing here about GaryCon, just real quick, is we're very fortunate to have a good relationship with them. Luke Gygax, who is Gary's son, runs the convention. Luke is an awesome, awesome dude, and really helped us get here and be a part of this show. So we are thankful and humbled by their eagerness to have us here as part of the show. So just a quick thank you to GaryCon and everybody. So everybody who's here from GaryCon, thank you all for following the links and subscribing to the event and just showing up to watch us gab about our favorite, or my favorite, role-playing game, Cyberpunk Red, and how to run games in Cyberpunk Red. I am going to ask each person to kind of introduce themselves. I'm going to start with you, James, because you're next to me, and you work at R.Talsorian, the company who makes this. So, if you don't
I
mind,
do.
tell us a little bit about yourself, your role in Cyberpunk Red, and yeah, where people can get a hold of R.Talsorian.
Hello, everybody. I'm James Hutt. I'm a game designer at R.Talsorian. I work on the Cyberpunk Red line as well as the Witcher 2 RPG. My role on Red was contributing most of the systems design. My flavor and all of the awesome story that setting is known for. Uh, you might also know me as Mayor of Balancetown. Yeah, that's me.
Yes.
Um, but I'm super excited to be here. Big thanks to GaryCon. You can get our Talsorian Games products off of our website. You can also get them at your friendly local game store, which I recommend if they're not already a part of it. Get them to sign up for Bits and Mortar. It lets them sell the PDF. It lets them get the PDF to give you for Frizzle. That's free.
It's free for you all that don't speak street.
For all you young kids out there.
Okay, I have to be real over here. It's important. Thank you.
R.Talsorian's on the cutting edge of pop society, dude.
Exactly. Did write slang for Cyberpunk Red.
There it is. There it is. Yeah.
There you go.
It's a bonanza.
Oh,
Anyway, you can get the PDF there with the book. So support friendly local game stores, especially now.
yeah. Hell yeah. And next to James is JonJonTheWise. Dude, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, David. My name is JonJonTheWise. I'm a Cyberpunk Red content creator and Cyberpunk 2020. I'm sure I'll get to that eventually. But if you want to find me, youtube.com/JonJonTheWise is where I make most of my content. And I love it. I love Cyberpunk, love playing it. I do actual plays, I do tutorial videos. I've been dipping in virtual tabletops. And really, I just love collaborating with everybody you see on screen. These are my favorite people talking about my favorite game, and I'm just so happy to be here.
Yeah, I gotta say, just as a real quick aside, getting to assemble this crew is my favorite thing to do. So putting all of us together on this stream has been such a treat, and all of the pre-chatter and all that stuff has really been great. So I echo that. These are my favorite Cyberpunk creators, and it's just really fun to be on stream with all of you. So next in the order, just to go through a Taylor over at the Con Save.
Yes, we are, as David put it earlier, a giant group of players
Yes.
and GMs and DMs. We play all sorts of games, but it all started because I've been wanting to play Cyberpunk since 2010, and no one would ever play with me. And so I was like, hey, guess what? We're going to do it. And you have to show up bi-weekly. And it's been great. So we got to get more people into it. We've been playing, meeting new people, playing new TTRPGs, all that fun stuff. And we are over on Twitch at the Concave, as well as YouTube and all the socials. And, just having fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. You tapped into the same secret I figured out is if you want your friends to always show up, turn it into a stream.
Yeah.
Turn it into a product, and they're like, oh, God, I have to show up because it's like a stream. There's going to be people. I can't bail. So it's just that little extra pressure. Now you have a consistent gaming group.
Yeah, and it's great. And, I was forever DM with at-home games and everything.
Hey.
And then starting this, I thought it would be. And now I think everyone that I play with is running some sort of game either at home or on stream. And it's just so nice. Now I get to play again.
Yeah, thanks for the subs, guys. Awesome. You're all in the chat. You're amazing. And just so you all know, we're going to get into a couple of topics. And by all means, hit us with some questions in the chat. We're going to be able to filter for those and all those good things as we go along. But yeah, thanks a ton, everyone. John, come on, bro. That's amazing.
Yes.
And next in the order,
you're welcome, Simon.
Yes, Simon over at WanderingDM. Who I think you and John currently compete for the longest running Cyberpunk games. So, welcome to the show.
Yeah, we're gonna have to compare numbers, but really, I'm not in here for the competition. Hi, everyone. I'm Simon at WanderingDM. So I do. I'm a narrative designer by day and a streamer by night. I worked on a lot of different things, from D&D products to NDA to Witcher, which I can at least say that. But yeah, so yeah, that's it.
That's the subtle hint. There's things he can't talk about. NDAs are a thing.
It was announced. It was announced by the R.Talsorian social media account. So, but that said, that's what I do. I also stream games, like everything from Cyberpunk to I do a lot of R.Talsorian games actually. Falkenstein, Witcher. I do a bit of D&D. And I'm all over the place apparently.
Yeah, that's pretty great. And last but certainly not least, just because of the order of the boxes, Patrick Knaus over at Two Brothers Gaming. Hey. Man, welcome.
Hey, yeah. Well, thanks for having me. So I'm half of Two Brothers Gaming. My other half, who is too handsome to be on video, is my brother Doug, and we've been playing RPGs since the early 80s, when I subjected him to torturous games of me GMing, and he had to sit there and take it. Turns out he likes it. So we stream games, we create games as well. So we're on the social storm wheel the world. But yeah, Cyberpunk Red, Star Trek Adventures, The Witcher, all sorts of games, and just love it and love Cyberpunk Red, and really glad to be amongst you illustrious people.
Yeah, dude, welcome. So I want to kick us off real quick, because I intend for this stream to be an introduction for anybody who has played a lot of role-playing games, likely, D&D and other fantasy role-playing games, and are cyber curious, as I like to think of it. Like, they're interested, they've never really played a game yet. So I'd like to do just a quick, hit off the bat, how is Cyberpunk different than fantasy role-playing games or kind of your traditional role-playing games? And I think that like everybody here has played or run some other games in the past. I want to pick on Simon, because I know you're doing both at the same time right now. So could you just talk real briefly, and then we'll kind of just, riff on that for a little bit, about maybe mechanically, how are like fantasy role-playing games different than Cyberpunk, and what does Cyberpunk allow you to do mechanically that you just can't do in other games?
One of the things that I love about Cyberpunk, and that you can do it in D&D, but you don't do it as well, is keep things local and personal. You don't save the world in Cyberpunk.
Right.
You don't. And that's one thing that I love about it. Whereas in D&D, you're always, because of how like level progression works, eventually you like laugh at the face of physics. You can do whatever you want. You are a literal god. in Cyberpunk, I'm going to be a rank 10 solo, and my main objective is I want to eat at the end of the month.
Right. Yeah, and you're like trying to save yourself or someone you love, and you could be really powerful in the streets, right? And you're just telling a completely different story, a completely different scale of the story.
You're still completely human in a way. You're gonna have problems that everyone has. You're gonna have a life just like everyone. You're not gonna live in like an outer planar mansion where everything is given to you, and your biggest problem is how do I rip open a portal to hell? And even then, even if you're, epic level, let's talk about like the last campaign of the Fourth Corporate War, Firestorm, where it's the peak of adventures in 2020. One of the main NPCs, like Johnny, still got shot down by like 3 bullets.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I like about Cyberpunk that a lot of people maybe feel a little intimidated about, but I think it's a feature, is that Cyberpunk is very lethal, right? And like you say,
love it.
Johnny Silverhand, like one of the most famous NPCs in the game, taken down by a handful of bullets, and that kind of like you're always on the edge vibe just rings so true in that game. Anybody else have something else to add onto that? Like, I'm sure we've all been running these kinds of games, so I'd love to open it up. Whoa, tons of subs. Y'all are amazing. Holy smokes.
Yeah, I mean, all I would say, which by the way, hell yeah on that hype train, that sub train. That's you deserve that, David.
Dude.
But what I would say about Cyberpunk is just echoing what Simon said, is it's a lot about survival. Survival is like the number one aspect. Everything that you do is about taking care of yourself, taking care of the people that you trust, which is a limited amount of people, and all of you working together, whether you're nomads, corporates, solos, it doesn't matter what aspect of Cyberpunk you're a part of. The number one thing is surviving, because life is fleeting. It could be gone like that. And it was close to being completely gone many times. And that's what every Cyberpunk game feels like. It feels that gritty thing where maybe in D&D you see somebody being robbed or mugged on the street, and you're like, okay, well, we're the good guys, we got to go do something about it. In Cyberpunk, it's about, well, tough, sucks to be them right now, better move
so
on.
Morally gray.
Exactly.
It's
Morally
like,
gray.
and I feel like in D&D, I mean, you can have obviously very morally gray situations, but it's so much easier to be like, I am a paladin, I am lawful good, I'm going to save the world and do nothing bad at all. I'm basically a Boy Scout.
And until
Where,
you
like,
start to poke at some of the things that they are actually achieving.
Yeah. Where it's like, I mean, that's been my favorite thing to play with when working on campaigns, is neither option's really great, but which way are they going to go? Like, who are they willing to sacrifice? Who are they willing to save? What are they willing to sacrifice? What are they willing to save? Like, you can really play with that and make your players have a thought process that they don't have lawfully good written on their character sheet. Like, it's, what would you do?
The subs are crazy right now. Y'all are amazing.
I love it.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy stuff. And the ability to put real moral questions in front of your players and say, y'all are going to make a decision, and somebody's going to die, someone that you have been an ally with, and you have to choose between allies. You have to choose between who you're going to back, because you can't do it all. That kind of stuff is so unique to a game that focuses on street level politics and stuff like that, that it's just really, really, I don't know, powerful to me.
I mean, my brother plays a former cop in our campaign who wasn't a good cop. He came from crime lords and was corrupt within the system, but now he's on the streets trying to what's important to him, and surviving, and he clashes a little bit with his other detective in terms of who's a little bit more morally righteous, though not. He's still a cop in Night City. He's not clean.
Not the clean. Nobody on that police force.
Good cops are dead.
You can't be clean in that police force, man.
Not if you want to live.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just that kind of gritty kind of, and I always feel like it has a very noir sense. That's maybe from my particular kind of perception of it and that kind of stuff. But I love bringing in that sort of black and white noir that then gets filtered with gray all over the place, and it's so easy to explore when in sort of with the cyberpunk red rules and the characters that you create, and just all the cybernetics and all the stuff that you start to think about. And if you really keep it local, like you've all been saying, and what's important to you, that's do I get my kibble at the end of the month?
Right.
Do I get something a little bit better?
Yeah, and that's all super intentional, I would think, James. Like, you guys really set the scope of the skills and the roles and all that kind of stuff that people are doing, with the exception of like the medias and the rocker boys that really can like move nations by the end. Like, there's a lot, I feel like, of intention in the way y'all put out the game together.
The main difference, one of the main differences, because there are a lot.
Yep.
At the end of the day, they're different genres. That's going to cause a lot of differences. But at least from a GM perspective, one of the main differences, I'd think, I'd hope, you'll have to tell me if you found this, is that in D&D, there exists the ability for someone to go, I'm not really feeling about this party, I'm not really forced to be here. Hopefully in Cyberpunk, my goal was to make it so party cohesion is forced by the setting. You have to stay together, not because you keep running into a interestingly numbered amount of people all the time that may have guns, but because that's how you make money. And if you don't make money, you can't pay rent.
Right. And
Yeah.
being homeless in the world of Night City is not that's not a survivable picture.
Is a great tool for.
My apologies, Tim. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You could be pseudo homeless and be pseudo survivable if you have the right skills for it, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
But no, being straight up the street is very, very rough.
Yeah, and it's really neat to see how the lore of the world is reflected in the mechanics themselves. Like, I think that you all do a really good job of making it so that the kind of story that is clearly intended in the books is what the rules allow you to tell, right? And like that's one of the things I always look for in a game, is to say, hey, I want to be telling these stories, but do the mechanics actually allow me to do that? Right. And like, y'all clearly put a lot of effort into making sure that I can tell the story of the rocker boy or the solo or the med tech, right? Just trying to eke out a living in this like rough world kind of deal. And I'd like to kind of dovetail into, for a real quick audience, one, y'all are amazing. Holy smokes. The gift subs and everything are blowing my mind. I do want to invite everybody, if you have a question, put like write out your question, but tag it as question in the chat, and I can filter for whenever you're asking a question, I can find that. So, yep, thanks Katrina, one of our mods, for tossing that in there. So if you all have a question for us, put it into the chat and we will get to that. But the next thing I want to jump into, we kind of hinted at this a little bit, is getting into some of the themes that the game allows us to explore. Oh no, we lost somebody.
Nope. John.
No, John's like streaming from not his house right now. Like we yanked him from family time. So so I'm very sorry. We've lost a couple of things, but I say we're going to continue. John will rejoin. I know that he will.
Yeah.
And everybody who's watching, you're just going to see Simon split between a couple of boxes for a hot second.
Oh wait, no, I gotta go this way.
Yeah, there it is. We're good now. We're good. And yes, Patrick has just become John. So yeah,
I'm honored to take on the persona of John.
Exactly. So yeah, I'd love to jump into talking about like themes that you can explore within Cyberpunk, because I think that like the themes of the game are very different than what you get out of other games. Like, this is not we've already kind of talked about this. This is not high fantasy, high adventure. This is like a little more gritty, a little more film noir. Somebody was talking about film noir a little bit earlier. Patrick, I'm going to pick on you as the resident author of the bunch, who's selling books currently on the Amazons and such. Talking about themes and things you can explore within Cyberpunk. What are some of the kind of favorite themes that you get to do within Cyberpunk?
Well, for me, one of my favorite themes is just the interplay of technology and humanity. The entire notion, and of course, we've got the system in there for cyber psychosis, sort of pushing the boundaries of what people can do, both physically and mentally, and the subsequent consequences of that, which some people are able to deal with a little bit better, others aren't. And that to me just creates a fantastic place to play. I mean, to me, Cyberpunk is you have mechanical hands. You have a solid steel chrome arm. You have eyes that can see infrared, and you're connected to the net. Sort of with the information. So that to me is one of the big themes, is just that interplay of technology, which of course always does come back to the local. How does that affect them in their daily life, and what can they do and accomplish with that? What challenges does it bring to them and let them overcome? So
yeah, that loss of humanity, being always trying to balance that, and then what is it like to have someone who's more than human as a close confidant, right? Someone who's always connected to the net and never really leaves it, that kind of thing. What does that do to your interpersonal relationships? Yeah, that's some good stuff.
Yeah, one of the major themes about technology that they talk about in the book is called technoshock, where technology just came too fast, and we're kind of experiencing it ourselves in our current timeline universe. But in Cyberpunk, it's like, everything's times 100. So it's like all these new crazy technologies out of nowhere taking over society, taking over corporations, and people just didn't know how to deal with it.
Right.
And the consequences of that are, we've lost a bunch of humanity, no pun intended. But a lot of us have relied on technology to survive. And that's what Cyberpunk talks about.
Yeah, I think there's something in there about the people who don't augment themselves just end up falling behind, right? And they never can get above, there's just barriers that they can't get above because they're not plugged in. They're not augmented in some way, or they don't have the right friends, kind of deal.
Yeah, think about anybody that doesn't have a cell phone. I mean, there's a few people, like maybe one or two, or they have a flip phone because they're like, I don't know what this technology is. And think about how much they're left behind in today's age with TikTok and all that crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Really reminds me of the movie Gattaca in many ways, where you've got the people that are sort of engineered genetically from birth have a advantage, period, no matter what. And the people that were born naturally, no one went around us with needs, are left behind. And the only way that they can get ahead is to actually try to manipulate the system to get them. So that would be a great thing, right? Somebody that doesn't have it trying to make their way in the world of Cyberpunk without the augmentations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that another place where Cyberpunk allows us to explore is that notion of law and order in a world of Borgs. How do you keep the peace when someone can be a one person army because they literally cannot be killed by normal guns, right? And they are a tank on legs, and they've got all the armor and armaments that they could ever need. What does that do for the police force or SWAT, right? And then now that beefier C-SWAT team exists, what does that then do to the rest of the society? Because C-SWAT doesn't have to be called just on Borgs. They can be called on anything, right? And now you have this kind of pseudo-oppressive thing going on where the cops can always bring in their own Borgs, and that changes all kinds of freedoms, all kinds of flexibility. You know, I think that like exploring that stuff is really really powerful.
You see it in 2077, but I think my cat has something to say about
Yes.
Cyberpunk.
Is that a cyber cat?
I just heard a bunch of purring in my ear. It's like, where's that coming from?
Adorable.
So it's something you see in 2077 without spoiling anything. When you're early in the game and you're driving down to the Watson development, you see the C-SWAT being called against what are literally like, I think it's like 2 people with handguns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
They just don't care.
nothing quite sets the mood or the tone of a game. Like, yeah, you guys are cruising down and looks like a couple of purse snatchers are getting gunned down in the street. And it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, okay. Like that's
I think that's one of those things too that you can easily equate to how it's different than like D&D, on the fact that like everything can kill you. Like we talked about the lethality of it all, and just these things of like, okay, well now I'm dealing with like C-SWAT. Like, what if I do something and they're called on me? But then there's also these gang people, and then you have like that gray area, nothing really good. You have to realize like I can back out of things. I have to run away from things. I'm not leveled to fight everything that's thrown at me. Like, there's no way
and-
your first session you're going to beat C-SWAT. Like,
Yeah, and that's a thing. That's a thing that it's a problem I ran into in a lot of games called the call the police issue, where whenever the players are overwhelmed, especially in a modern game, like if you play like alternate reality games and all that, and they'll say, "Oh, let's call the cops." Like, let's not. You don't want to do that in Cyberpunk.
no.
Heck, you don't even want to call trauma team.
Not if you can help it.
Yeah, they're not going to be like, oh, which one of you are the bad guys?
No.
It's, oh, you have the card, you stay alive, everyone else dies.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. By our hand, because we got to clean this scene before we show up with our
Yeah.
medics. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, and it stuck to me. I think it was either in a GaryCon panel or Gen Con panel last year. I heard someone talking about Cyberpunk, saying how it's so different because with the cops or with security guards, like you're unimportant. Like a biotechnical security guard is going to secure the building and the assets within. They don't give a shit about anyone else. Or a bank teller, they're there to keep the building and the assets safe, not the customers.
Right. It's all
like,
about the property. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, you could just be in the bank and then someone shoots it up and the guards are not going to care if you're in the crossfire,
Nope.
or just little things like that just.
Yeah. I want to say that was Simon, you and me, and Drutter Cup. We're talking about that at Gen Con. And so the way I handle the cop problem is whenever cops are called, because my players will call the cops the first time, they show up, sure, but they're there to protect each other, right? First and foremost, they protect each other, and then whatever the problem is does not matter. Sorry about the crying. So let's take some questions from the audience. Okay.
How's my audio?
It's a
You're
little
good,
cut now.
looking beautiful.
Little
Yeah, all sets in it.
flanging.
Yeah.
Now your sound cuts off for me, but
Yeah, unfortunately, James, I can't quite hear every word you're saying. Hopefully it clears up. So we do have a question from Takes Jokes asking, as a GM, what are your deciding factors when leveling PC role abilities? Do you level all players together or reward them separately for their specific actions in game? And I think that this gets into how Cyberpunk levels characters, because you get XP that you then spend on skills or special abilities. Or some GMs, like what I did for my last game, I just said, all right, everybody's special abilities goes up every chapter. So we did a chapter, everybody's special ability goes up. That way they don't have to save a bunch of XP for the one thing. They can get that progression just by GM fiat. But I think that the XP system in this game is interesting because it's so granular. Hey, you got XP, now you spend it on this one thing instead of getting a big lump sum increase. How do you guys do role abilities for your player characters? Do you split them up? Do they level at different rates? How do y'all do it?
If you don't mind me going first, because I tested different things. I'm currently running 2.5 concurrent campaigns. So I tried different things with each. The last one I tried, I went exactly with what's written in the book. So everyone would choose their role between, were they a role player, were they an explorator, were they a fighter today? I don't remember what the other one was, and then there's one for the whole group. And of course, we go on the more generous end if we're not sure about, like, oh, if your contribution actually changed something for everyone or not, or just a little. And the players had fun basically boosting each other up. So one person would say, oh yeah, I think we did half of everything. I figured that what I did today, what I said during that interview at Biotechnica, like that was okay. And then another player jumps in and will add, like, no, wait, you said this, which made sure that I lived. And like, to me, that's very important.
Right. It's important that I lived, and I'm glad that you made that happen. So I want you to get XP for that.
Yeah. So
like
everyone was just hyping each other up, and it never went to the only time I gave them more than 50 XP was because I decided to give them more. Even though the table goes all the way to 80, no one like tried to min-max or to power game their way through that. With my other campaign, the one I started with the JSK, we didn't have leveling up during the Jumpstart kit.
Right.
So what I did is I gave them basically GM Fiat. Every story arc, they would increase the roll ability by 1. And then every 3 game sessions, they would increase a skill by 1. And now what we do is just we have like a set amount of XP, of IP, sorry, I should say IP, at the end of every session.
Yeah. Anybody else have other approach?
I'm glad to playing it by raw worked out for you.
Hey, James, you keep cutting out, by the way.
Initial read, it seems like I'm just supposed to.
Yeah, we're
to solve that. I can't really. I'm on cellular.
Got it. That's unfortunate. Yeah, unfortunately, we were getting like maybe every, I don't know, half sentences there.
Would it work better for sound if your video was not on?
Yeah. If do you want to throw up the sealed picture and I can just move you? Okay.
Just to see if it works.
We'll do that. So we're gonna do a quick camera adjustment, folks, and see if we can't get some better audio from James. And while James is doing that, and I'm working on my end of it, does somebody else have another take on how to handle that stuff?
Yeah, I've been trying to mess with it myself. It's so basically there's a chart at the end of the core rulebook that tells you how much XP to award your party or individual people, and I just went with that chart. I haven't found myself giving them anything less than like 60 IP, and the max I think is 80. So I've been giving them between 60 to 80 IP per session, depending on how much of the plot was moved forward, how major the plot point was, if it was something big that happened or a minor thing that happened, or I try to balance like game time and the plot, like this weird kind of thing together. But I have been experimenting with giving individual like 5 or 10 IP to people if they do really, really cool things during gameplay, clever things, or really good luck of the die.
So just in the middle of the sessions, like, hey, I love that. Take 5 IP.
Yeah, exactly. I've been experimenting with that. So far, it's been good. It hasn't been like overpowered or anything, as long as I'm not giving out like 30, 40 IP. And I don't even think it'll be overpowered because it's pretty costly to move some of those skills, and some, especially like your role abilities, are really, really costly.
Yep.
So giving them a little bit here and there, I don't think is a problem. I think that if you were playing every day, like 4 hours a day, you would probably have to be a little bit more conservative with the IP. But if you're meeting like once a month or twice a month, be a little bit more generous, make it feel like it's worth playing.
Yeah.
I
And
hear ya.
I give
So-
5 IP for a good joke because my players are so goofy. If they make me laugh, I'm like, that was a 5 IP worthy
That's
joke.
solid. That's solid. Yeah.
I like that goof. Go for it.
I reward my players if they do a post-session write-up. I give them 10 IP. Just straight up, hey, if you're writing something between sessions, I'm giving you XP. Because I, as a GM, love hearing the character interplay, and if they like do a play-by-post session between each other, there's IP for that. You know, like I don't know. I don't want to role play just during the scene. I want to give out rewards for that kind of behavior. And I'm sorry, James, I think you're back. So you had
I'm back. Is this better?
Oh yeah, tons.
Yeah, sorry. Running video for like 6 people off of a cellular connection in the corner of a building might have not been too much for my iPhone 5.
Whoops.
Um,
Sorry.
I'm running on an old model here. I should upgrade someday. Anyway, happy to. I love hearing everything y'all are doing with IP. I might reiterate this later. I won't apologize for reiteration. But this is really I built this as a builder system. The IP section is a tool for GMs. And hearing you guys use that tool to do what you want is very, I get the warm and fuzzies. Running it straight, it's meant to be the GM is ultimately the person who says, okay, 60, 80, tell me how you feel like you did though. It forces that self-reflection.
Yeah.
I like that y'all do that. I'm going to steal that. I always mean to, and then we're tired by the end of the campaign or the session. I forget. I'm like, no, I love that we talk about it and like the Mass Effect one. So,
yeah.
So I have a question for you all though. My question is the second part of IP, not the how did you do today, but how did the team do on the mission? How do y'all feel about the team column?
I love the team column because
Yeah.
like so many games you can end up with like if all of the rewards are individual, right? Then it does eventually incentivize players to like try and steal the show on one of those columns, right? But as long as I've got the team reward there, I can just be like, look, y'all, the team did great today. You all worked together. Let's give a big Scooby to the whole team. And so, yeah, the team column is, I almost always use the team column just because I like that. I like that style. And then give out smaller rewards for individuals so that they are getting rewarded, but not in an outsized way compared to everybody else.
Yeah.
The way I
Cool,
see it, the team column is my column. As
same.
the GM, I know how far they got into the mission. I know what they missed. I know what they could have done. They won't know that.
Right.
So I use it as like so every player gets like theirs according to the role that they chose for the mission, and then the other one is mine.
That's cool. I like that quite a bit.
So
That's why they never get anything.
That's why they never get anything. Dang. I can't.
So I give them 0 IP. Yeah.
Yeah, I had this whole mission in mind, and y'all got really into this like hot dog vendor and like his whole family situation. So 0 team rewards. Great job, guys. Huge role play rewards, but 0 team accomplishment.
I will say, primary, secondary. If somebody, one of my favorite parts about the rule is that it exists as like a test for people to see. Oh, this is what I can do in a role playing game. Oh, I can do this outside of a game. You're saying that I can dress up as my character? Question mark.
Right.
Yeah.
So that exists as a teaching tool. Like you can run the like what kind of role player you are for a brand new gamer. And it might, help them go, oh, we don't have to dress up? What if I want to?
Right.
But totally feel free. I believe the last sentence is, unless they do something really cool from another one of the columns. So really, they're not only that one column that they sign up to, that's them showing up and being like, maybe I'll do this today. But if they end up doing something else and it's cool, hell yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's good.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I feel like I feel like IP in Cyberpunk is one of those things that doesn't mean as much as XP does in D&D if we're going back to comparing. Leveling up is probably one of the biggest core mechanics in D&D. It's like part of the story is now we are this level, now we can do these things.
Yeah.
In Cyberpunk, you start at a level of like you're already capable of doing a lot of things. You can get a little bit better
Right.
and a little bit more access to things, but you're already at a really good start.
And we all know here on this panel that like cash is king. Cash is how your character gets stronger, right? So like the IP is nice, and it's a really good method to like incentivize different styles of role play and different styles of playing the game. Like the combat player gets rewarded for combat, the role player gets rewarded for role play. Like everybody at the table gets their Scooby for participating and helping the game along. But we all know that it's money that makes a team more powerful.
So confession, I don't give my players IP. I'm so far from the Traveler world that where you just don't.
Yeah.
The character is your character, and so how you improve is the cash you get, how you augment yourself. You know what kind of weapons you can support yourself with, who you can hire. I don't get IP most of the times because I forget. You know, it's like, oh yeah, and somebody says, hey, how much IP do you get? But you know, I rely on their kind of the state they come out of as a character from character creation, and I tailor what level of character that they want at that kind of, you know, I kind of get everyone starts at. So I may up their skill set and their capabilities so they're a little bit more powerful, but I don't usually give them IP.
Nice. That's neat. That's really cool. Yeah. So
I give them
I
IP
will
every 4
say-
episodes because I forget.
Yeah, I will say there's the secret for like this is the lazy GM secret.
This is what I want.
If you don't want to deal with the IP system, just give team IP.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You can always go, yeah, you finished the mission.
Yeah.
You know, belch and then give them IP. Scratch stomach.
Exactly. That was good. So, and then I'd like to move
Nothing wrong with
on.
that.
We have another question here from. I'm sorry. I'm going to butcher this name. Dinchiman. We have a question here from Dinchiman. Do you have any tips or templates, quotes, on getting started with players who never really played Cyberpunk before? Any good ways to establish that reliance on each other and setting the stakes early? I think all of us have had to do this for making our player characters come together. What is the crew? Why are they all joined up at the hip? Why do they rely on each other? All of that stuff is super critical. I will start off this one by saying the life path system in Cyberpunk is crazy good. Like if you've never gone through a game that does the who do you know, who your enemies and all that kind of stuff, go through life path with your players. And while they're going through it, be asking them, hey, how are ways that you all can be together? Maybe your enemy is this person's ex-lover. Maybe both of you share an enemy. Maybe all of you share an enemy, right? Like use that life path system to help weave the story about why those players are together and why they need each other for the life of your campaign. Because eventually they may like cash out and not need each other. They may be off the streets, but that life path system is critical on telling that story of why they got to where they are and how they maybe know one another.
Yeah, that's how we did. Because when I started mine, all of us were really newbies. I mean, I had been reading stuff for years, just wanting to play, but all of us are newbies. So we went through and did the life path and all that. We were still running off 2020 because Red wasn't fully out yet, but we were able to easily adopt it over. But I was able to then, take those little pieces. So now all of them have a little piece and who's there, like who's doing this. But I started it off very like almost meet in a tavern, kind of a fixer brings y'all together, but I ran session zeros with a couple of people here, a couple of people here, a couple of people here, where it was like, okay, the solo has a job now, but then now they need the Rockaboy and the med tech to do a job and like really show in small groups how reliant they were on each other and needed those skills. So then by the time they first all came together, at least a handful of them knew a handful of them and knew their skills and were like, oh, you're important. So it really solidified like you're hired, you're a team, you all have your jobs, go.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and definitely fixers act almost like band managers. They can assemble a team. So that could be that's a whole nother viable thing. Is like, no. The fixer brought all of you together, and all of you owe the fixer something important, right?
Mhm.
And
I
that
say
is
the
that
fixer
is
is the
a cool
GM.
way-
The
Yeah.
fixer is me.
That is a cool way to empower a PC fixer as well.
yeah,
Mhm,
totally.
mhm.
You were the
As
one
a
that brought them
GM,
together.
people are like, yeah, no, you're the one bringing them together. Why would they? Why would it be someone else?
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah, another thing to add on to what Taylor and David said, another thing that I use is I also make the players create part of the setting. I'll take the example that we did with the apartment. I had them. Who lives where? What's in each apartment, more or less? But then we added a an old lady that lives on the 7th floor. She bakes cookies for everyone, and she's the like sort of mom of the whole apartment.
Yes.
We had another one who is this mysterious, like overworked office worker that ended up being actually an exec from Biotechnica, slumming it with the poors and treating everyone like tourism. And
Nice.
he was just he enjoyed doing that, and that's why no one saw him all the time, most of the time, because he was either at home with his family or everything, and then from time to time he'd go to the apartment and look how the poor people live.
Yeah. These poor people with their apartments and their locked
Yeah.
doors.
And
They're not even in
then
a gated community.
Yeah, no, and we they also came up with a bunch of peoples. There's Barry Showalter, who's a 40-year-old man who lives with his mom. He's addicted to bowling, brain dance.
Yes.
And it's his story is super sad, and I keep wanting to make him like befriend the PCs, and they don't want to.
Because they know it. They're the ones who invented him, right? They're the ones who are like,
I know.
Yeah, they're like,
They
no,
did it
no,
on
no, no. We
purpose.
don't want to be around this guy. He's too sad for us.
But what's fun with that is now they, out of game, they had a stake in the world. Because they made those NPCs. So in some ways, when that NPC comes in to ask for help, their characters are more likely. It's all meta, of course. It's metagaming, but the characters are going to be more invested. Why? Because the players help. So if it's your first time playing Cyberpunk, that can also help create like links everywhere to the world. Because if you've never known Night City, like you could play in New York and that would be the same thing. Like what makes Night City is the setting.
And that's kind of brilliant because then you're allowing the players to decide a little bit more about your world. And it's like, what are the NPCs and what are the things that they're bringing into your world? And like that kind of tells you this is what they expect to see, the kinds of things they expect to see in your Cyberpunk. That's cool.
Yeah, I think that session 0 is so important for Cyberpunk because of this exact reason. You have so much life path and stuff like that, and stealing an idea from James Hutt, our very own James Hutt. What I usually like to do,
I'll allow it.
yeah, I learned from the best. What I usually do is I have a session 0, all the players get together, and I tell each one of my players, introduce your character, tell us about them a little bit. And because of the life path and everything, they're all like excited to tell you everything. Like, oh my God, yeah, this happened, that happened. And then when they're done with their little explanation, I roll on the hustle chart in the core rule book. And for those of you that are not familiar, it's this D6 chart that tells you what you did for work this past week. And James says it's a great way to give people pocket money, but it's also a great way for all the players to find out what this character had just been doing, what they just got off of doing. You just heard their backstory. So that's like in the past. And then now let's talk about the near past, like stuff that happened yesterday or the day before. And it gives you an idea of what kind of thing this character does, how you can connect them together. Maybe that person's hustle and the other person's hustle actually kind of coincide. And it's like, oh, you guys worked together, actually. Maybe you even trusted each other way before this campaign even started, because you have been doing hustles together. So yeah, I think session 0 and stuff like that is really important.
Yeah, I love the
Yeah.
hustle chart. I've been using that a lot lately for that same reason. Like the solo got a job, the fixer gave it to him. The techie needed to make something, the med techie hired him to make it. You know, like it was able to just kind of work within my players. Great.
I also think that you got to remember that hustle chart, because it is one of the reasons to play a rocker boy. It is one of the reasons to play a exec, because if you, while the techie has the tech, apologies, well, the tech has all of these powers to do with downtime. If you have like a rocker boy in the same group, they're going to be like, what do I do? I'm not addicted to anything right now. I don't need to go to.
I'm sober. I'm
to
sober.
therapy,
3 weeks
you know?
sober, man. Come on.
Fair enough. And the answer is they can make a whole load of money
Right.
with their guitar.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And then they got to get out
That's an
there.
aside. Move forward.
No, yeah.
I don't want to slip you all into a corner.
No, you're good. You're good. So Simon, you posted a nice thing in our little side chat about Legend Keeper and giving the players access to a place to edit the world with you. Oh my God. That was a game changer. When I got a place where all of my players could make articles about their own stuff and edit articles and all those things, like that completely changed everything. And we're sponsored by those guys. They're super awesome. Everybody should go check them out.
I love Legend Keeper.
They're so
love
good.
it.
Yeah.
They're so good. Yeah, and it's cool because you can like make a bunch of wiki articles and then have them like auto link and then these maps and everything, and it's just like I just turn that loose to my players, and now my players get to watch me world build. So they're like, "Hey, David, you put a lot of stuff in here about this arcology. What's going on over here?" And then like I can start talking about this with them, and that helps me flesh it out further. And so like I found that just world building in front of them has helped a lot, because now I have like that discussion point with them. So I'd love to move into so we've got some more questions in here actually. Cryptic asked, how do you keep the city alive as far as events happen without involvement from the PCs? Like, Gang A takes over territory from Gang B, that kind of stuff. And that gets it. I got a great segue, because I was just talking about world building. So yeah, go ahead.
In the book, there is a scream sheet headline generator. The number one answer is, of course, that's your job. You're the GM. The number two answer is, hey, maybe we can help you out. That's scream sheet title generator. It's 3d10s. It's a holdover from 2020 because it's gold, and you can't throw gold away.
Right.
Right. That
Right.
would be bad. That would be wasteful
We don't
at a
do that
certain
here.
point. And I believe you can roll like CEO murders dog. And you can do whatever you want with CEO murders dog.
Yes, exactly.
The other thing you can do is just have some of the scream sheets happen without the player involvement, and they hear about it on the news articles that are presented with the scream sheets.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't ever plan on running it with them, use it as flavor. Use it as background flavor.
That's one of the things.
That would be my advice.
That's one of the things I do is like whenever I put together a campaign, I come up with about like 3 or 4 things that are happening in the world from different factions, and I'll build out what's happening today, if unchecked, what is going to happen tomorrow, and if unchecked, how are they going to realize their final future vision, right? Of taking over the neighborhood, the building, the world, whatever their scope is, right? And the players will find out about those throughout the game. And the things they don't address, well, 2 or 3 sessions later, they hear rumors about those other tracks progressing, right? Oh yeah, Southtown is just a bloodbath right now. It's just full street gang warfare. And it's all because they didn't go to some meet on session 2, right? And you just filter in those rumors, because I'm kind of tracking 2 or 3 things, but I allow those 2 or 3 things to impact a lot of areas of the city, and just whatever they're not touching, after a few sessions, I'll start filtering in rumors about different things happening because those timelines have progressed. And maybe the players now care about that, or maybe they don't. Maybe they're still on to other things.
Yeah, I've started adapting the Blades in the Dark progress clocks for different things that are happening and kind of timing it as it's moving. Each of those segment fills out. Oh, nothing happens. They don't see anything. Oh, triggers a headline. Oh, wait, why is that building burning down? It's just kind of progressing them and able to kind of just keep the cylinders going on various different pieces to kind of do what you described, Dave.
Mine is way less like structured, and Blades in the Dark has a really nice like faction progression tracking system that you can just rip. You can use that in any system. And
just draw a circle, put lines through it, and start filling up stuff.
You'll find that we all rip from everything. We're like, oh yeah, there's this obscure game system over here that has a mechanic I like. It's now in all my games. That's all there is to it.
Hell yeah, guys.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Anybody else have other like world building or world tracking event, like just trying to make it so that the world is alive around your players? Go ahead.
I'll go after Simon.
Okay. Mine's gonna be a bit of a big endeavor. Have multiple games streaming at the same time.
God.
So
No big
what
deal.
I did,
Glad that works for you.
well, it's hard. It's very hard. But basically, every game of Cyberpunk that I run, ever since we started, is always in the same universe.
Right.
And so events that happen in one game can directly influence events in another. Give you an example. I have a group who are lacking a netrunner. They were double crossed. They're basically trying to run a delivery company in Night City. And they were tasked to deliver a bomb to the CFO of Jarafa. Not knowing it was a bomb, basically they got crossed, but their faces are all over cameras everywhere. So they need a netrunner to try to clear clean everything of their likeness everywhere. They don't have a netrunner. So what they did is they contacted a player in my other game.
That's awesome.
And they basically, because using Legend Keeper, we have like a list of the services that players are offering in between game sessions. So like that hustle table, basically I didn't need it that week because that netrunner was paid running something for, in fact, one of the other players. And now she found the information, but she was like, let's dig a little deeper. So she found more info that she then sent to the players.
That's
so
awesome.
in the next game with that group, they're going to have information that is given by, so that way everything seems to be working together and moving. It's all moving parts. And of course, because they're streamed, like if you really want to see that exact scene play out, you can just go watch the VOD. But otherwise, we either send messages or we recap or we paraphrase. But it requires running right now 3 games.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump the shark a little bit on that and say that sometimes GMs from different channels can share characters between the channels and then decide on a whim, let's marry the worlds.
Oh, also Casey and I decided last night our fixer hooked him up with the Midnight Runner, so we go way back.
God damn it. God damn it. For those who don't know, in my game I have this player, Casey, who plays a character, Vinton, and Vinton's going to show up in a con save game. And we were like, oh, let's just make them the same world. And I didn't know that. I'm missing the meetings. I need to be in on these meetings.
Yeah.
So I know what's up. That's
good old Screw.
That's
he
good.
knows everybody.
That's good.
He's old. He's been around.
We have another question to jump to, unless was there more to add there?
Oh, no, I was just going to say real quick that I agree with everything everyone said, and that's a really good idea, what Simon said with the hustle chart thing. Basically, the way I like to do things, I like keeping things really personal with the characters, and if there is a living world around them, I make sure that it's connected to them in some way, kind of like you know, like if you play Skyrim and you're looking around, what you don't really know is the whole world isn't loaded. It's just whatever you can see is loaded. And if you move your point of view around, then the other things will load like really quickly. It's like a trick of the system, right?
Right.
I kind of do the same thing in my game. I have whatever events are happening are only happening coincidentally when the players are there
Right.
to witness them, and it affects them in maybe a minor way, a major way, whatever. It's something that affects them, affects the plot, and that way it feels more important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's and also like just letting them see random stuff in the world, right? Like they're not involved and they like see Max Tack take on some carjackers, right? Or they see some like I don't know, factory workers just being totally subjugated, right? Or whatever the thing is, right? Like that kind of stuff by all means always.
Plus, then there's
Yeah,
the
you can,
random encounter chart too that you
yeah.
can work in.
Yeah, totally.
There you go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And some of those encounters you may not like challenge the players with, they just witness those
They
things
just
happen.
see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so Cyber Smiley asks, what is the group's feeling on published scenarios versus homebrew scenarios? I want to pick on John first, because John, I don't think I've given you first seed on any questions so far.
Yeah, sure. I used to be first of all, I learned how to game by writing everything yourself. I didn't even know that there was such a thing as like published scenarios in the beginning when I was a novice. And then the same guy that taught me how to game kind of arrogantly told me like, "Oh, dude, other scenarios using published stuff, that's for babies. This is a real way to play." And I kind of like kept that mentality for a long time until I decided, you know what, let me crack one of these open, let me see what's going on. And I realized like, oh my god, there's so much I can learn. I didn't stop writing. It actually made my writing better to pick up a published scenario, look at the structure, especially from R.Talsorian themselves. They're like, hey, this is our game, this is how our adventures would be set up if we could do it.
Right.
Why wouldn't you read that just to learn, you know, something you're going to learn something. There's always wisdom in other people's work, and because of that, I think it's
Oh my god, I'm so sorry, guys.
because
Wow.
of that, it's all good. I think it's really important that you open yourself to all possibilities from everybody, collaboration from everyone. Everyone's mentality can help you, and there's always something you can learn.
Yeah, John, I really agree. I mean, you know, I started off writing my own, and I've always done that. And, you know, it's always something that I've enjoyed to be able to tell my own stories. But I read tons of published scenarios and adventures, and I will adapt and use pieces of them at the very least. And they also really help inform just the ways to kind of set up games and have characters interact, and you know, all sorts of flavor and details and little encounters you can pull up. So so I endorse John's statements around published adventures.
Yeah, I'll just say in here, I don't think I've ever run a published adventure, but I have ripped stuff from them. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like I'll go through and like I don't want to make another like map of something. I'll just rip this map from this thing, and they've got some pretty decent like NPCs and plot hooks. I'll grab some of those and then like change them up to fit in the continuity of what we've already been doing, kind of deal. So I'll mine them for information, but I have yet to actually run a module or a pre-made thing. But they are super helpful, right? Like I'm gonna buy them as soon as R.Talsorian starts putting some out there. I'm gonna buy them because I want to steal the information out of them and use them in the context of my game. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way I do it.
Well, coming from like a newbie standpoint, just reading them so you understand how the game works as a DM or GM, like you don't necessarily have to run it. Like that's what I did is I read a ton of scenarios from 2020,
Yeah.
but then built my own. But I was like, oh, okay, this is how the world works. Okay, you start to get it on how it's written.
Yeah, that's really key. I'm sorry everybody for my background stuff.
Oh,
sorry, but
that's fine.
I'm curious about I'm curious how James feels about it.
Yeah, James, what are your thoughts on pre-made adventures and all that kind of stuff? That'd be interesting.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. There's a graphical glitch where there's a mic with a mute button near my
Oh, whoops.
thing. I don't know what that is. Anyway, I kept thinking I was muted, but I wasn't muted. My bad, guys. Sorry about this.
No, you're good.
Yeah, my thoughts on published adventures is I read a lot of published adventures. I happen to also write them. I love them. I steal from them. Of course, not literally.
Right, yeah,
but,
not into your things you're writing, but yeah, into
I
your
wanted to
own
point
stuff.
out that it's cool to say you steal from stuff until you actually steal from stuff.
Yeah, it's completely different as a GM in a home game or whatever. Yeah.
Steal we mean here means be inspired by. That's okay.
Yep.
It's been okay since the dawn of time. No theft, no actual theft is occurring. Anyway, in order to write good adventures, you got to read good adventures. You have to, you are what you put in. So I would say read as many adventures as you possibly can. The 2020 books are still a mine, an absolute gold mine of ideas for your red campaign.
Yeah.
Night City specifically, if you're trying to figure out how do I make Night City feel more alive, read the 2020 Night City source book. It's amazing.
Honestly, to
if
me, that's like required reading. It's so good.
So here's another tip. If your players all say, "Oh, but we all want to play Rocker Boys," well, now you need to read Euro Tour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now you need to read the Rocker Boy source book from 2020.
Yeah. Well, and when people say, "Oh, we all want to be one role," like go to those 2020 source books because there are role-specific books with role-specific campaigns, and it's just so good.
If you're having trouble figuring out, how do I have a lawman in my group? Read Protect and Serve from 2020.
Yeah.
That'll give you enough stuff to steal, as we're talking about, for your group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, that's my advice.
Good, Tim.
My advice ends up being buy more of our products. So I sound like a shill. But,
sounds suspicious.
I love my job. Sue me.
But there's also like real wisdom in there of like just getting inspired by them has a lot of value. And I'm sorry, Simon, we keep cutting you off. What do you have?
No, I just have a little thing to add at like the end. It's a gross generalization of it, but I'll wait until James is done.
Oh, I'm done. I buttoned it up.
Okay.
I said my feet.
So the only difference between a homebrew scenario and a published adventure is that in one of them, someone got paid for it.
Yeah,
That's a good final thought there. That's really strong.
That's very true. I used to make homebrew.
Yeah.
And there's some incredible homebrew out there that has never traded $1, and that's just passion projects and all that kind of stuff abounds.
Mm-hmm.
So we have another
Yeah,
question.
and if you think, sorry. I was going to say, if you think about it, a published adventure has been collaborated on by different eyes, different people. I mean, multiple people have refined this thing before it goes out on shelves. When your homebrew content is you in your basement writing out ways to kill your players, and no one else has seen it.
For true.
Dark basement.
So, X Ollie asks, weapons, tech, etc. If your players have an idea for an item that sounds interesting and innovative, what are ways you would reward, challenge them besides just giving them the item? So, like they say, "Oh, I want this thing," and do you just like GM fiat they have it, or how do you make them work for it? What are some experiences you all have? I want to give this to, I think, Taylor. Have you done one first yet? I don't think you've responded first to a question yet. So what do you do when one of your players comes to you and says, "Hi, I want to have 32 explosives"?
Hi. Well, unfortunately, my most rich character is my techie, and he also has a lot of free time, so he just makes a lot of stuff. But hey, we follow the rules in the book.
The item creation rules are there.
They are there, and we follow them. I give him the timeline. Like, he definitely has a long list of stuff he still wants to make, but I'm like, you've only had a week. No. Sorry about you.
Yeah.
But I knew there were some things that certain characters from the beginning were wanting to reach towards. Like I knew there were certain items that people wanted and couldn't afford when they were building, or something they wanted to grow to. So I've kind of written those in as little milestone Scooby snacks as well. It's like not just IP, like here's your flamethrower, like here you go. Um, but other than that, if they come up with something crazy and my tech can build it and they spend the time and the money on it, I'm gonna let it happen. Our rocker boy has a moped with rocket launchers on it.
Like you do.
Why? Because they built it.
Yeah.
They had the money. So
Oh my god.
I'm also just very much a rule a cool GM, and I'm gonna let it be as goofy and fun as my players want it to be. So I'm like, let's go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would call upon the wisdom of James Hutt again. He came onto my channel. We did a video on the economy, and he said one of those things that kind of blew my mind. He said, "It's not all currency is not all about money. It's also about favors."
Right.
So if your players want something and they have the money, well, they got to find somebody that's willing to sell the things that they need. And that person that's willing to sell the things that they need probably will need a favor. So if you really want them to earn an item that's going to mean something to them, then have them do a favor for somebody that can help them get that item.
Yep.
Yeah.
I kind of take the if they say I would love for my character to have a thing, but they don't provide a mechanism for them to get it, right? Like they don't have a techie or they don't know a fixer or whatever. I will have them see that item in a very inconvenient place, right? Like,
Like, how bad do you want it?
right? Exactly. It's like, oh yeah, you remember that like crazy like rocket hammer thing that you were talking about? It's like, yeah, it's actually hanging up in that police station behind some glass as like this thing they got off of some booster ganger. It's just right there. Or whatever, right? It's like if you don't if there's not a path that they're kind of helping me find, I'll put it in the world and they can see right where it's at. And if they want it bad enough, they'll get it. And there'll be consequences, and that's what I want, right? So to me, if I'm going to gift them some kind of cool item, I as a GM really want to attach some consequences to that bring the world in and make them do stuff and have responses to that, and make the world respond to them for doing whatever they had to do to get it.
Yeah, I attach strings to it, or consequences, or favors, any sort of kind of. It's particularly the big things. Oh, this is the centerpiece of my character. Well, right. It's not going to be easy. Mm-hmm. It's going to be fun, and hope you survive getting it. But here's how we're going to go. And just kind of make sure we kind of bring that world in. It's a way to, I think, give it to them, but it attaches a value to it as well. It's not they have to earn it, and that kind of thing. So I agree with. Yeah. I think it's all of that.
It gives an option to, when you throw it in front of all the players, to grow some sort of character development or bond between your players. Because like my flamethrower, my solo really wanted a flamethrower, but she was broke as hell and couldn't afford this flamethrower. The techie, like I said, he's a very good gambler. He's made all of his money off of bets. And he had the money and he bought her the flamethrower, and it like immediately bonded them by like, I see you want, or some sort of scenario of like, you're gonna have to fight for it, but everyone's got to help me. And then your players grow.
Yeah. It seems like the lesson here, Ollie X, is don't just give it to them. Mm-hmm. Right? There has to be some kind of in-world path, reaction, consequence, PC to PC bond. Use that as a tool to help the story happen, to help tell the story about why those players are more together, or maybe a stressor within the group, that kind of thing. But don't just fiat they get it. Have meaning, more meaning in the game, right? Because now they don't just have the coolest gun on the block. They now had this whole story attached to the coolest gun on the block, kind of deal.
All right, I have one final thing to mention from this.
Yeah.
It's also okay to say no. specifically when a power gamer asks you in this manner, and it's not like a hey, I would really love a flamethrower. It's a I would really love a Malorian.
Right.
There are you will destabilize your game by giving them a luxury or super luxury item, basically for free or even easily accessible, like even one police station. Protecting a Malorian is not enough.
Concentric circles of police
Additionally,
stations.
if it doesn't exist in the rules, you should use the tech rules to try to make it, which includes you get to decide what the rules are. Don't let your player dictate what they want the rules of the item to be, because that is the epitome of the fox guarding the hen house.
Yeah, and
that's what we've been doing with our techie. He comes up with an idea, I give him the stipulations.
Right.
Like,
There
okay,
we
you
go.
want to make a hand that has like lighters. Like, this is the problem. Or like he wanted to make with the med tech, they partnered up to make some sort of patch for like bullet wounds. I was like, okay, you figured out this thing. I'll let you have like an immediate +2 HP to just stop the bleeding, but then it's gonna work like a no, I can't remember what I told him, what type of thing it works like, but I'm like,
yeah.
you can tell me your idea. I'll tell you how good you do at it.
Yeah, and
What works and not gonna kill my story.
James, you got a key point here in that GMs be aware of the tech level progression, the money progression of your game, because the moment your players are in like AVs and they're not just in ground cars, your game is completely different. Right? The moment one of them has like a full conversion Borg suit, your game's totally different than what you started with. Right? So like be aware of that stuff, that like sometimes an item could be too much, and that's entirely fair.
I've been pro GM right now, so I'll be pro player for a moment.
Yep.
If you really want to destabilize your GM's game, if you hate them, if you secretly dislike your GM,
I'm gonna mute you
play
right
a nomad.
now. Whatever it is
Here
you're
we
about to say,
go.
I'm gonna mute you.
Play a nomad with a gyrocopter.
Play a nomad, get a gyrocopter
What?
at level 1. Allow flight at level 1. It's the only way to do it in the book. They'll hate you. Make them think on 3 dimensions. Do it.
Oh, I thought he was going to
Banning
tell you about
nomads from my
Daddy
future
Shark.
game.
Oh my god. Yeah, the level 1 flying character. Always. Yeah, becoming a
Not
nomad
allowed, Lewis.
is
Not allowed. You cannot be a nomad in my game.
Nomads are pretty freaking powerful.
I actually have
I
one.
love nomads.
Yeah. They're crazy.
First time he plays Cyberpunk ever, makes a nomad, wants the gyrocopter. I gave him the gyrocopter. Like, he's not a power player anyway,
Well,
but gave him the gyrocopter. It's just, there are AVs in Night City, right? So there are rules to follow when you fly around. There's air traffic. There's all of that. Just because you fly doesn't mean you're suddenly immune to everything.
That GM.
see, but when a nomad has one and they invest into pilot air vehicle.
Oh yeah, he's very good at it.
They're rolling 25s, and it becomes very hard to be like, I guess you get hit with a rocket. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, or James's abomination of a med tech with a linear frame and crazy drugs.
Yes.
I mean, that thing's insane.
Yeah, so broke. We have a little bit of time. I want to do real quick one last question from the audience from Control the Alt Delete. Any pointers on how to include official timeline story elements without tripping over inconsistencies? I posed this question to the guys who wrote The Expanse, like the authors of The Expanse, and they told me toss out the core plot unless there's some elements of it you want to use, but it is not canon in your world unless you need it to be, right? So I'll just say right now, I got from authority of a novelist and show writer who made this crazy cool sci-fi thing. They were like, nah, none of our stuff is sacred. Just toss it. I do think that those things are fun, right? Like, players like running into Silverhand. They like running into Ghosts of Alt or whatever, right? Like, that stuff can be fun. So use it, but I personally wouldn't I would not sweat the inconsistencies of canon. How do you guys do it? Do any of you have canonical characters, and how do you do it?
Well, if someone I keep talking.
Go.
So if someone
No, please do.
Yeah.
Okay. So in my game right now, the players, all of my games, everyone's helping certain Lucius Rhine, who's a brand new politician because we're in 2045. So what I did is look at the wiki, look at the books, find where it's missing information, and that's where your game is.
Yeah.
So Lucius Rhine, we have no idea what happened to him before he became mayor of Night City.
Right.
Cool. Well, the reason why he became mayor of Night City is because he was helped by all of these edge runners that are my players.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's the Disney approach
some,
to
like-
Star Wars. Is like, there's all this stuff we don't know. Let's just start filling in that mortar. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. I was gonna have my players be the ones that blew up the Arasaka Tower before Red came. Like I didn't know what was gonna happen in Red, so I was like, "Ooh, this would be awesome."
Yeah.
So, allow me to not apologize again for reiterating the thing I said I wouldn't apologize for reiterating earlier. This is a builder system. You're the GM. We've given you tools to make it exactly like you want. Hopefully, we're flexible enough to move like water when we need to, and rigid enough to give you a rules basis to fall back on when you need it.
Yep.
If you don't want X character to exist in your timeline, you go right ahead.
Just flick them away.
If you want one of your players to be the grandson of Olivia Forsyth, face of Continental Brands, you go right ahead. Do what you need to. Have some fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's how I see
definitely.
it, for sure.
You got permission from James.
Yep. do what you need to. Yeah. So we have about 5 minutes left, and there's this one question that we always circle around, and I always want to make sure we talk about it, and that is player character death. Because hey, D&D, there's a lot of ways to survive. You got to kind of want it. if you're gonna lose a player character in D&D, you gotta kind of want it, right? Whereas in Cyberpunk, you can almost accidentally lose a player character, right? Like it doesn't take much. So I'd love to, if we could just go around the horn real quick, talking about how we as GMs manage player character death. Some GMs, it's like fiat cannot happen. Some other GMs are like, oh man, if I haven't lost a character in a session, I haven't done my job, right? And there's a huge gap in between. So, John, I know you're on a time crunch. Do you mind answering real quick how you handle PC death?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I hate it. I hate everything about player death, even though I know that it is a vital part of gameplay. Because if you don't feel like your player can or your PC can die, then all the excitement of almost dying is completely gone.
Right.
And there's no point to combat. There's no point to social interactions if there's no danger. So as much as I hate it, I understand it exists. And the way I handle it is, you got to let it happen, cry about it. Then the next day we'll meet up again and say, hey, you okay? Everything all right? Will you have any ideas for your next character? What could we have done differently? Whatever we can, because losing a character in Cyberpunk after you've done the life path and we've gone through the campaign, it's like it's a big loss, So just like it might sound stupid to people outside of our realm. It's like, this is like a game. What are you guys talking about? But you're invested, and as a game master, I think you should check in with your players, and that's something I learned from you too, David. But yeah, basically, I hate it. I think it's necessary, and I think you should handle it with care.
Yeah, excellent. Patrick, what are your thoughts on player character death?
I'm gonna quote a wise person by the name of David Gillespie, who said, "Look, the world is dangerous. Character death happens. I'm not going to try to kill you, but if you insist on doing something, and the dice just don't go in your favor, well, you knew that the consequences were there. So So yeah, I don't try to kill them. I don't, I'm not that kind of GM. But I definitely don't stop them from trying to do something. And if the consequences end up where it does,
yeah,
and you're right, David. It's actually, I mean, roll a 10 or roll a 1, in this game, it happens.
Yeah,
often.
the death saves are not forgiving. You don't get 3 shots. You get the 1, and then you made it. That's another 3 seconds. You're alive. That's it. Yeah, that's good. Simon, how do you feel?
So even in D&D, I don't allow resurrection.
Okay.
Because death needs to be final.
Yeah, final consequence.
Otherwise, there's no point. If you're immortal, there's no point in anything. But I allow revivify in D&D, which is like a 1 minute, after death, which is to me the same thing as the cryo pump in Red. So it's a last minute save. That said, while I don't like resurrection and all that, I also, especially in Cyberpunk, if Cyberpunk is a game that is personal, then death has to be personal and has to have meaning.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I will cripple your character in a firefight. You will lose limbs. You might die because of the roll of the dice. That's always a possibility, but I will never set out to kill you purposefully. But at the same time, if it ever needs to happen, in the sense that, the players decided to do something stupid, I use the rule of 3. You get 3 chances to get out of it. So if even after 3 times, you're like, no, I want to kick Adam Smasher in the balls. Well, I will make sure that Adam Smasher has something linked to your character. Or that this event somehow becomes important to everyone, becomes personal.
Right.
Because that's what Cyberpunk is about.
Yeah.
So you're not going to die because you fall down the stairs.
If you walk down the stairs. Oh, yeah, failed. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, died.
But if you do...
What's wild?
Yeah, if you do, it's because the stairs killed your parents. That's how it is.
Oh, God.
They're cursed stairs.
You know what?
That's the worst Batman story ever.
Yeah, it's just an inanimate set of stairs.
In the bathroom, then the bedroom.
I always say that I didn't kill your character. R.Talsorian did.
That's right.
We all know who ultimately killed your Cyberpunk character, right?
Mike Pondsmith.
Yeah.
Maximum.
It's not me.
That's right. Oh my God, Taylor, how do you handle PC death?
Yeah. I kind of mirror a lot of what Simon said. I'm not going to try. I'm going to give you every opportunity to back out. I very much with Cyberpunk focus more because everything can kill you with a roll of the dice super easy, like we've been saying. So I try to focus when I build encounters on the map and the environment. So you have a backup plan, you have stuff to hide behind. One guy, like one enemy, could feasibly kill a party of 4, possibly if the dice are bad. So I try to kind of give them the advantage by location or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you know who's in there and you run in a blast in and stuff happens, I do my only permanent death has been in Cyberpunk.
Yes.
Not me, but one of my players. And I tried. My players can tell me if it worked or not. I tried very hard to make it personal and make it matter because this was this guy's favorite character he's ever played.
Oh gosh.
But it was poetic. He died in his best friend of 30 years' arms. He was a nomad. They had to take him back to his nomad family. Like I was trying so hard to make it personal. And to mirror kind of what was going on in chat, his backup character is a sibling. It was his adopted brother. But now he has a fire lit under him. He has a purpose. This new character, like everything that is happening now is because this character that died. So even though it's like, oh yeah, now your brother's here, it doesn't dismiss that other character. It gives the whole party a reason to go.
Yeah.
So I try to put that, stab you in the heart a little bit, but
I want to add, like, to trump up one of the things you're saying there is that, like, some GMs are afraid of PC death. They'll never let it happen, kind of thing. And it's like, yo, there's a story element here that is so powerful. When it's like, yeah, we lost a character, and let's go through that process, and then that player comes back with the sibling, right, or with the whatever that knows that character, and now the whole game has shifted because there was the game before a player character death, like in ours it was Blue who had passed, and then there's the game after that character death, right, and it completely changes everything, and it's a really powerful storytelling tool.
We've only had like one full episode post that, and you can still just feel it after that. And I mean, Blair and I were both like sobbing for 2 hours while this new character is getting introduced, and they're saying goodbye. We're just like,
I'm being told to tell you all the story. So I put this gang inside of a giant fortress of a firehouse, and then they went and attacked the firehouse at night when most of them were asleep. And one of them found herself alone. Actually, all of the players split up. All of my players split up and were on their own. And I was like, if y'all are in a room by yourself with a bunch of bad guys, I cannot save you as a GM. And I did not save them. I almost killed 3 of them. Very nearly killed 3 of them. And I was just like, guys, I'm sorry. This is just the way it's going. I'm so sorry. And but when Blue passed, we all made it very personal and did a lot of write-ups, and we had like a memorial on stream about it. Like, it was, oh man, it was deep. It was good. And then the game completely shifted, and it was like there was the game post Blue's death, and it was just really, really powerful. Oh no, spoilers. Sorry, chat. Whoops.
They had their time.
That's right. That's right. It's been out for a while. James, any thoughts from you on PC death and the R.Talsorian answer to, what happens?
I'll make it quick. The first thing you need to do is let people know that this is a game where player death can happen and is a part of the story. You need to make sure that people know that their characters can die when you explain the type of game you're playing at the beginning. No one should be surprised that death exists in your world. Nobody should be surprised that they can die. A lot of people are coming from D&D where some groups frown heavily upon killing players.
Player characters.
Maybe they have that initial
player characters. We don't kill players. We kill player characters.
I don't kill players. I kill player characters. I just want that on record.
Oh my gosh.
What time is it? What day is it?
Yeah.
Anyway, the R.Talsorian answer is summed up in a very short phrase. It's called "Samurai do not fear death." Death is not the end because your actions were more important than your own life. Your character should be remembered by the world that they left. In what light you are remembered, that's up to the actions that you took when you were alive.
Yeah, infamy versus fame. Yeah.
And I think that a character that does not die, their story cannot end.
That's right.
And in a way, a character dying is the ultimate bookend to their story.
Yeah. So, Casey, if you're still watching, your book has not ended yet, and you're off to a new adventure.
Oh, no.
Death is the only release you can have from this prison.
Man, existential. I love it right here at the end.
My point being, it's an important moment in your character's story. It's one of the most important moments in your character's story, but isn't the most important moment. I think it's not their defining achievement to die, unless they do so especially heroically.
Yeah. And I think too,
but it should be important. It shouldn't be glossed over, and everybody saying it is correct. If your character cannot die, then their story means less than if they could, or at least is a different story.
Yeah.
This is because in Cyberpunk, it's you're a lot closer to death all the time than you are in D&D, and it relies on that white-knuckled tension to keep everything moving along very quickly.
Yeah,
I think it's an accelerant for the story.
Yeah, agreed. Well,
It makes it so important to the players, because how many of us just today have talked about things that have happened in our campaigns as if it happened to us?
right.
So, you have to think too, these are
You do.
extension of you in a way too,
I will say you do need to keep that distinction between you and your character so that when
Mhm.
you die, it can be fun for you as the player. Try not to get too attached to a Cyberpunk Red character in the way you might get attached to, like, this is my one true character in D&D.
Right.
That way, maybe you can really take to heart that samurai do not fear death mentality.
Yeah, and explore the fun of this, because there is fun to be had on the backside of this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, folks, I think we are a little over on time, and I want to say thank you to all of our panelists for staying late. You're all awesome. James from R.Talsorian, dude, thanks so much for lending us your time on your weekend. You work 9 to 5 on this stuff. I'm very appreciative that you made some time on your Saturday to come and talk to us and give us that.
Oh, it's GaryCon. Even I have a life.
Yeah.
I gotta be at GaryCon.
GaryCon, baby. And John,
Big
dude,
ups.
thank you so much for being
the
here.
only man that I hope is rolling in his grave.
That's right. Rolling them D20s.
Exactly.
It's an absolute pleasure. I love doing this. I love all you guys. I wish you all the best in everything that you do, and I'm gonna be a supporter from the beginning till the end.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Likewise.
We love you all too.
Yeah. Taylor Consave, thank you so much for being here. You all as a crew are awesome. Taylor, you are especially awesome. I have you to thank for this amazing layout that you've made for us. So thank you for that, and of course all of your wisdom today.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Simon, dude, Wandering DM, always a fan. Thank you so much for being here. Any parting comments, thoughts?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Dude, always. And Patrick, my buddy. Oh man, it's so good to get to do these streams with you. Thanks for being here from Two Brothers Gaming, and everybody in the chat. Y'all blew me away today. I did not expect no hype train action. That was amazing. I've never seen anything like that. I'm pretty sure that the channel is not even set up with more emotes. Like, I don't think we have those, so I'll need to go make some emojis. Get those into the system, because that was amazing. You're all wonderful people. And thanks for the great questions, y'all. This was fantastic. This was so much fun. I lament that we only do these for cons. I wish we could do these more often, because they're just so much fun. But I know that we all are all very busy. We have stuff to do. So thanks everyone for your time. And thanks, folks, in this chat one last time. You're all amazing. We're going to sign off here and get everybody back to their games and days and that kind of thing. So I want to hit a raid button. There's the thing. I'm going to send this whole